Hello to all you lovely people and welcome back to the Costa del Sol. Hola y bienvenidos a la Costa del Sol. So in this video, my intention is to guide you through the steps you would need to take if you are a serious buyer looking to acquire a property on the Costa del Sol. I'll walk you through it step by step, and at the end, stay here so I can give you some pro tips on the best way to actually make this process easier and give you a head start. So of course, step one, there are certain steps you can take before you even go about the property finding process. So if you want, you can actually go ahead and open your own bank account. In order to do this, you would get an NIE number. So these are steps you can take before you even go about looking for the home that you want. Again, these are things that you would do if you are a serious buyer. In order to get an NIE number, that would be the first thing you would need to go about, even before opening a bank account. You would go to the National Police Station, and there you would, for a total of, currently it's €9.84, they would give you your own national identity number, which is then something you would use to open bank accounts, sign contracts, and proceed with the property purchase. And this would facilitate the process, not just with the reservation and the future payments, but also when it comes to paying taxes, changing names with utility bills, and making sure these things come out of your current account. Without an NIE number, you can't even legally purchase a property in Spain. So it is fundamental that you have the NIE number in place. The second step is to make sure that you have arranged your finances. If you have a bank account, either abroad or in Spain, make sure that you have pre-approval for that mortgage if it is something you need. Of course, if you open an account in Spain, this will facilitate the process if you are looking to buy on the Spanish coastline. Also, bear in mind that you'll have to account for that 10 to 13% on top of the purchase price. These are things that some people overlook and then find themselves in a bit of a sticky situation. So again, those are the first steps you can take before you even start looking for property. The next step, of course, is then to find yourself a good agent who will help you along the way to find that right property for you. This would require you explaining to the agent exactly what it is you're looking for. You can do this without the agent if you wish, but it's always good to look for local help, and someone who is experienced in the property market will always help guarantee a smoother process. So the idea is you would tell the requisites that you have to that agent, and he would start finding options for you that fit in with the things that you're looking for, whether it be the lifestyle, whether it be certain things that are special to you or important for you. And then, of course, he will provide you with a selection of different properties that you could go and see, whether it be a new build or a resale. He would offer you different ones that you could have a quick look at and then organize viewings. You would then go to those properties, have a look through, check them top to bottom, and ask for further information to make sure that the property you're acquiring fits in with whether it's that long-term rental opportunity, whether it's something you want as a second home, or even if it's something that you want as an investment for short-term rental. Of course, once you've found that perfect property, what you then need to do is do the due diligence on the property and the seller. This is something which we cannot recommend enough, to hire an independent lawyer. Obviously, in different parts of Spain, the process works in a different way. So getting one who works locally and is familiar with the stipulations along the Costa del Sol will always be a benefit. Make sure that the land registry is correct. They will provide you with information about the property, but sometimes, due to the fact that some of the elements of the house have been modified in some way, whether it be increasing the size of the actual house itself, or even changing the sizes of some of the rooms inside the house due to a smaller building license, then these are things that need to coincide when you're going about purchasing the property. Make sure these things fit in, otherwise you may find yourself in a bit of a pickle later when it comes to going to register your property in your name through the land registry. Also, the verified ownership. Make sure that the person you are buying the property from is, of course, the seller. Because sometimes people can be a bit cheeky and try and sell you something which isn't technically theirs and the property is not in their name. Of course, on top of this, make sure it is debt-free. You don't want to be buying a property which has outstanding debts, which will then be absorbed into your name, and then you would be held responsible for paying off those debts. once it's in your name. The next step would then be going about signing the reservation contract and paying a deposit. Generally, these can change quite drastically. If you're going to buy a new development, then the actual reservation could be anywhere between 3,000 and 15,000 euros, maybe even higher if you're looking at luxury developments. If you're looking at buying a resale, then generally this is up to the seller himself, but the rule of thumb is around 10% of the value of the property. Okay? So there is an initial payment, which is in order to block the property and make sure it's taken off the market to avoid other people who are interested from going and visiting it. This is generally between 3,000 and 6,000 euros, and then the actual reservation would be that 10%. The important thing to stipulate when it comes to signing the reservation contract is the payment terms, the dates and timelines of when the completion of the entire payment for the acquisition of the property would then come to light. Of course, always remember that if you decide to withdraw from the reservation contract after having paid it, you stand to lose the amount you've already put in. However, also bear in mind that if the seller decides to withdraw, he would have to return double the amount of the initial reservation. So the reservation is in place, everything is going ahead, and now the next step will be going to sign at the notary. When you sign at the notary, the rest of the payment of the outstanding amount would then have to be completed. So first of all, if you're looking at a new development, some of these have timelines where the completion could be just around the corner or it could already be completed. And of course, there are certain timelines where you could be looking at paying the outstanding amount in 2 years' time, maybe a little less. So when that comes to light, you would then have to go sign at the notary and pay that outstanding balance. With regards to resales, this is something which has a shorter timeline, generally anywhere between 30 and 90 days relative to the agreement that is made between you and the seller. At the notary, of course, this is when the ownership is transferred into your name. The final step would then be paying the taxes and registering everything in your name. Okay, when it comes to the taxes, if you're looking to resale, then we're paying 7% for the ITP, which is the Impuesto de Transmisión Patrimonial. Okay, once that is done, then your resale is technically in your name. And of course, if you're looking at doing a new development, then we're paying 10% VAT. Always, these are the numbers which are not accounted for when you're looking at the purchase price. So always add these extra percentages to the purchase price to avoid any shocks when it comes down to it in the future. Now, having guided you through the steps to take in order to acquire property in Spain, I'm going to give you a couple of those pro tips that I mentioned in the beginning. First of all, if you're going to buy a new development, make sure that the plots of land in front, there are no plans for construction there. A lot of people have that big surprise of buying a property with a beautiful view and then finding that soon after they will be building something in front which will completely obstruct that view. Of course, if you're going to buy a resale, bear in mind the fact that the property owner who is selling his property has probably already elevated that price slightly just to try and achieve the number he initially had in mind. So negotiation is important. And finally, the best pro tip I can give you is listen to your real estate agent. In this case, go with me and I will make sure that the entire process is smooth and seamless, as I repeat on many occasions, and I am there to make sure that that plot of land in front is not going to be a multi-story high-rise building and your view is not blocked. And if you're going to go for that resale, I will make sure that the person who is selling that property has not elevated the price so much and that the negotiation works out to be very fair for you. Now, having given you all of this advice, the least you could do is give me a thumbs up or subscribe, and I will be providing further information in my future videos of the right way to go about purchasing property on the Costa del Sol, and of course, new development releases, which will be of interest to anyone who is looking to buy a new home in paradise.